I wanted to bring in a good friend of mine, Judge Napolitano. He wrote, "It's dangerous to be right when the government is wrong." How are you, sir?
I'm fine, Glenn.
Good.
Happy to be with you, my friend.
Good to see you.
Like the old days.
Yeah, I know. I know. So, Judge, you have said that you have to stop obeying unjust laws.
That is the most controversial part of this, absolutely. You know, because we've talked about this, and we have been, my great gift, we have been friends for years. This is my 6th book on the Constitution. Each of them starts with the same premise. We have rights by virtue of our existence as human beings. They don't come from the government, they come from our humanity. The government acts as if it can turn them off, as if it is the origin and creator of those rights. This is not an academic argument. If our rights come from our humanity, then laws enacted by the Congress or edicts issued by the President which restrict those rights are invalid. This book is just a continuation of its predecessors because the government gives me so much to work with. As to your question, yes, there are unjust laws. Some of them have existed in our lifetimes, and they've gone away because people have challenged them. The Jim Crow laws in the South. The Southern legislatures didn't have the political fortitude to get rid of them. Judges in the South didn't have the intellectual wherewithal or precedent to get rid of them. It took brave, courageous African Americans to defy those laws. Remember, the law said to the owner of the white lunch counter, "You may not serve black people." It wasn't so much the owner of the lunch counter, it was the state that was enforcing that racism. Those sit-ins, covered by the media, exposed injustices to the whole country and to the whole world, and the laws collapsed.
But here's the thing, because I agree with you, but here's the problem we have. We have people in our society that want chaos. You know this and I know that.
Yes.
They want chaos. They want to collapse the system. I don't think you want to collapse the system. What you want to collapse is the distortion of our system, the distortion of our Constitution. Others, though, want to collapse it. They don't want the Constitution. They you know, it's the reverse, you know, it's negative liberties as opposed to positive.
I agree with you, and there's a lot of subtlety there, and I know you put your finger on them. Just go a couple of blocks from here, where I myself haven't been, but we sent our producers. I would imagine you've done the same. Some of those kids say, "End the Fed." I'm with them. Some of them say, "End the wars." I'm with them. Some of them say, "End the IRS." I'm with them. Some of them say, "Use the IRS to steal wealth from people who work hard to earn it and give it to us." I'm not with them. The Constitution is not with them, but they want the government to do that for them. Some of them have legitimate beefs. Their futures have been destroyed by governments that have spent away their futures, and a Federal Reserve that has printed cash that enabled the governments to spend away their futures. But the answer is not a giveaway. Right. The answer is not less capitalism. The answer is more capitalism.
Right.
Any one of them could be Steve Jobs.
So, but what I'm asking you here is, we are living at a confusing time right now, because you don't have just people. The lunch counter, you had brave African Americans standing up and saying, "No, I'm going to sit down here, and I'm going to sit in the front of the bus."
Right.
And then you had white people who said, "Yeah, absolutely." But you don't have that this time.
It's more subtle.
You have it. No. It's more subtle, and it's universal, and it permeates everything. You have the makings of chaos.
Yes, it's more dangerous today. We're not talking about a lunch counter. We're talking about exploding buildings.
Yeah, and we're talking about on every level. They're not people that want to just, and we have 1968 all over again, except now we have real financial trouble on top of it.
The subtitle of this book, and I'm so grateful for you having me here and on your radio show to talk about it, is The Case for Personal Freedom. I take every freedom, every major freedom there is, and show where it has been acknowledged historically, how we have it morally, and where in the Constitution and in federal law it is protected. Because people need to know that there is another tyrant among us. It is not the kids downtown. It is not the enemy at the gates. It is the majority. It is an attitude in Congress that thinks it can write any law and regulate any behavior and tax any event just because they have a majority vote. It is the tyranny of the majority. And it is the purpose of this book and people understanding where their rights come from to stand up to a tyrannical majority and say, this is not subject to legislation.
But this is the argument, Judge, that I have been making on this program, you've been making your whole life. We're not a democracy. A democracy is majority. It's
Correct.
majority rule.
Correct. We are a democracy under a constitution that recognizes the primacy of the individual. That's the subtitle, the case for personal freedom, the primacy of the individual. The individual is greater than Congress because the individual has natural rights that Congress can't take away. They can only take away your natural rights or mine if a jury convicts us of violating somebody else's natural rights. They can't take them away because the president signed a piece of paper.
So should you, there are people now that are saying, you know what, don't pay your mortgage, don't pay your student loan.
And they may get some support from the White House for don't pay your mortgage and don't pay your student loan. If the government, first of all, that attitude violates the law of contract. If I borrow money from a bank and I don't pay the bank back, they have rights under the loan agreement, which basically means they can take my house.
It's unjust.
It's unjust for the government to interfere. It violates the contract, the contractual relationship between the borrower and the lender. It upsets the natural course of the flow of economics. It interferes with the free market. Some of those kids downtown want that to happen, and that is wrong, and it would violate basic principles of justice.
Okay. So what are the things that we should stand up for? What are the things that you say you can't take this anymore?
Well, the basic rights that we have: thought, speech, press, religion, travel, privacy. You and I have talked about.
Let's go through some of these. Travel.
I don't think the government has the right to stop me and ask me for my papers, whether I'm getting on a train, a bus, or a plane. It's none of their business where I'm going. It's not even any of their business who I am. Now, in my world, there wouldn't be a TSA. Who has the greater interest in preserving that airline and the passengers on it?
The airline.
The goons for the TSA or the airline? Of course the airline. Let the airlines do it. An XYZ airline wants to look at an X-ray of me, I'll choose whether or not to go there. An ABC airline will say, we know you, we trust you, get on the plane, and I'll choose to go there. Freedom of choice, protection of private property, no government coercion, respect for the individual. We don't have any of that.
I fly on LL Airlines, and a lot of people say, oh, they never fly LL. It's just too intrusive.
It's the safest there is.
It's the safest there is. And you know what? Go fly another airline. That's the way it should be. If I want that kind of security, if I want to make sure, then I'll answer those questions.
But in America, because the government has interfered with the airlines at their most important juncture, when they interface with their passengers, with their clients, the government doesn't give you security and it doesn't give you freedom. It gives you a false sense of security.
They would say that the airspace belongs to all of us. So, and you've got a flying missile. So if an airline doesn't do their job, it does affect the rest of society because they fly it into two planes.
And the government can do a better job than the airlines, the same government that can't deliver the mail.
I'm just saying. I'm just saying. All right. Have you seen what happened with the EAS system, the Emergency Alert System?
No, I don't know this.
On November 9th, they are doing an EAS test, first time ever, where the government is seizing all airwaves, television, that includes cable and radio.
What government? The American government?
The United
federal government?
States government, for 3.5 minutes, are seizing all airwaves. Wow. 2 p.m. Eastern Time, November 9th. It's a Wednesday.
They already follow us wherever we go, whenever these Blackberries are on, without a warrant. They've argued to the Supreme Court they don't need one. They've argued that they can come into your garage and open up your car and put a GPS device in there without a warrant if you don't have a BlackBerry with you. Now they're going to seize all the airways. I didn't know that.
Just for an emergency test, in case there is an emergency. Now, the reason why they're doing this is, I mean, this has been a long time coming. But the reason why they're doing this is because they say they need to be able to alert people if there is a national emergency. But they never ran an EBS or EAS system. They didn't activate it on September 11th because we knew.
When Robespierre was cutting off people's heads during the French Revolution, He said it was for public safety. This is always the reason that the government gives for destroying life and property and freedom is public safety. I'll give you a similar story. A janitor in an apartment building in New Brunswick, New Jersey, this is 5 months ago, is cleaning up an apartment, and he sees in there terrorist literature and all kinds of surveillance equipment. He calls the local police. The local police burst into the apartment at 4 o'clock in the morning. They find 4 New York City cops and 1 CIA agent. What were they doing there? The CIA agent has no authority anywhere in the United States, and the New York City cops have no authority in New Brunswick, New Jersey. Was anybody prosecuted or arrested? No. Did anybody in the mainstream media cover this? No. Is this going on anywhere else? We don't know.
Where are we headed, Judge?
We're headed for a totalitarian society unless the good people that have been gracious enough to listen to you and some of the arguments that I've been making in the past few years wake up and realize we need a game changer in this election. This administration has to go. In my view, it's Ron Paul. Do I expect him to win? It would be a stretch. But he would shrink the government back into the Constitution where Thomas Jefferson and James Madison placed it, and from which it has escaped.
I have to tell you, my problem with Ron Paul is I don't think he's a realist when it comes to the Middle East. Look what's happening in the Middle East right now.
Well, he has succeeded in generating a serious debate about the role of the federal government in our lives. Do we need the tax code? Do we need the IRS? Do we need the Fed? Do we really have allies in the Middle East? Do we need wars of imperialism or just wars of defense? To the extent that those arguments, which were once fringe, are now mainstream, wherever his career takes him, he has succeeded. Now, maybe he's Barry Goldwater to somebody else's Ronald Reagan. I don't know if that's the case or who that person will be, but Barry Goldwater played as much and as formidable a role in bringing us Reagan as Reagan did himself.
Number one thing that people, if they took away one thing and they said, I was listening to the judge, and he said this. This is the one thing that I should be aware of. This is the one thing that I should make sure I'm up on right now.
Your rights come from your humanity, and the president, the Congress, and the police cannot take them away.
Your rights come from God.
Your humanity comes from God, right.
Got it.
I believe, as do you, that we are created in his image and likeness, and as he is perfectly free, we are perfectly free.
Okay. One more question. The Pope, because you're Catholic, you're big...
I'm an old-fashioned pre-Vatican II Catholic.
Yeah, you are. What is going on with the Vatican coming out and saying that they need they're recommending now a global banking system, global financial structure, and a system that will distribute wealth, take wealth from wealthy countries and give it to poor countries?
You know, the Vatican, I love them. They should stick to saving souls. They're not economists, and they don't run a world government. Tell me how to get to heaven, and help me get there, and leave me alone.
God bless you, man. Thank you.
Thank you, Glenn.
The name of the book is It's Dangerous to Be Right When the Government is Wrong, available everywhere. Thanks, Judge.
Thank you.